Test.
Good morning, everyone, and very misty outside today. And we have Graham with us, and Graham's going to speak about trusting myself. Such a good subject. So, if we can trust ourselves, then others can trust us. And some interesting stories that Graham has to tell. So I'm sure you'll enjoy. Thank you.
Well, good morning from Misty Lura. Yeah, an interesting experience, this topic, because it came from a morning class that we had several weekends ago. As you all may know, that every morning at every center around the world, we enjoy a class to start the day. And there was a statement in the class several weeks ago, and it was that there'll be something lacking in your happiness if you have some lack of faith in the self, in the drama, which you could call existence in very broad terms, or God. So if you have some lack of faith in any of those three things, the self, the drama, or God, then there's going to be some gap in your happiness. And so it got me thinking a bit about my own personal experience of being involved and learning and studying Raja Yoga for quite a few years now. And so that became the basis of today's talk. And so I started thinking a little bit about, when you find yourself in difficult situations, and when the so-called miracles are few and far between, when you're really not getting a lot of sustenance from life and you might be struggling. And as a result, you can start losing faith in yourself, trusting yourself, and then what do you do? And it's a common experience of anybody who delves into the world of the BKs, is that there's so much information, there's so much knowledge, if you like, and to bridge the gap between what can be sometimes taken as an intellectual exercise and real life is sometimes a really big leap. So I wanted to tackle this whole thing of trusting myself sort of in that vein. And but we'll just go back to some basics. Basics are so important to review, and I do it a lot. And so there was a beautiful line in the class this morning's class, and it was, no human being knows that they are an actor. And so when you talk about existence, and I've been thinking about this a lot recently, what exactly is existence made up of? And there's me, and then there's others, and the material world, there's matter, and then there's God. And this whole experience of living and moving through life and the journey we're on is essentially made up of these three things: me, the world at large, which incorporates all the people, and then there's God. So, and we're going to kind of touch on all those things, on how to regain faith in not only the self, but existence, which we'll call the drama, and also God. Because when you think about it, and there was another beautiful line this morning, is that every human being values peace. It doesn't matter who you are. And I think we can extend on that. Every human soul values not only peace, but happiness and love. And that's really what we are, any of us are aspiring to. And then it takes on all the manifestations that you see in this world, all the manifestations of human activity and what people strive for, and all they work for is to experience peace and happiness and love. But that's when the problems start. And herein is this big, massive drama that we're seeing on this amazing world stage that we have today. But I'll go back a little bit. I'll backtrack to the self. So when I'm standing here talking to you, I'm very conscious and very aware that this is not me. What you're looking at is not me. And there's a really wonderful way of thinking about myself that I like to practice, and this is actually an image. And it's an image of a reflection of my awareness and my consciousness. And you don't have to look too far on a gross level to see that this is actually true. People spend so much time now on trying to improve their physical image as a reflection of perhaps what they're trying to experience inside themselves. So really, I'm not just this. And I spend a lot of time and have spent a lot of time over decades practicing being the being inside this body, the eternal being, the point of conscious living awareness that thinks, that feels. And so when I'm speaking to you, and in fact, when I'm speaking to anybody else, I really enjoy maintaining that awareness because it has a huge impact on my own feelings, my own thoughts, and how I relate to other souls in their images, their bodies. But it has a huge impact on how I go about my day-to-day life, how I think and how I feel, dictates how I live my life. So that's the self. But what about the drama? Because we're talking about the drama as well. And there's an interesting statistic that I think it's in the last 200 years, an extra 6.5 billion human beings have come onto the planet, which is an astounding number of souls to come into bodies to start playing their parts on this tiny little blue and white dot hanging in space. And in the BKs, one of the intellectual or aspects of knowledge, you can take it this way, is that human souls are subject to entropy, that we come and we start to play our part on this planet, and when we first come into our first lifetime, we are completely pure in the sense that we have a natural awareness of being a soul, an eternal being in a body. And as a consequence, in that early part of our existence on the planet, we are in our golden age. We are in our highest experience. But we take bodies and then we lose that natural consciousness and we start to associate with the image that we are actually in. And then the problems start. And then we start to exhibit characteristics of greed and anger and attachment and ego, negative thoughts and feelings that are all bound and based on I am this and this is all I am. And I like to think that if you don't have to look too far most of the time to translate what can be seen as an intellectual, spiritual idea and see the reality of it. We've had 6.5 billion human beings enter this huge play in 200 years. And human consciousness in its totality 200 years ago wasn't particularly great. And you add all those souls who are subject to the entropy of the soul becoming body conscious, if you like. And now we see the ultimate manifestation in this world of what is possible in the sense of when souls are the farthest away from their normal or natural highest state of consciousness. So there's the self, the soul, the eternal being, and my focus is on changing myself, but I exist in all of this, and I'll come to God. So let's just take a slight sidestep. And I like to think that whoever I'm speaking to right now, I'm speaking to for a reason. I wouldn't be interacting with you guys out there wherever you are if I don't have some sort of connection with you. Thought is very powerful, and we have not just thought or felt or acted in one lifetime. We've had some connection before. because nothing happens for no reason at all. Nothing. It may look like it because this is a massive drama with 7.5 billion actors, and it's very hard to keep track of all the interrelationships, but nothing happens for no reason at all. Nothing. And to describe or share an experience of the reality of this, I remember sometime last year I was at work. I work in construction, and I was sitting there at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I was working. I was building a deck with a colleague of mine who's now become a very good friend, and my mind went very, very still. What I now describe as being bodiless. It felt like I was almost being pulled away from the moment, being pulled away from my body, and my mind was completely still and clear, very peaceful, serene. And I was sitting next to my colleague who was oblivious to what was going on, but it was very obvious to me, and this went on for about 5 minutes. And I didn't know why, but it was a very strong feeling. And as I was driving home in the afternoon, I don't live too far from this place where I'm presenting. As I was driving towards the street that I live in to turn off, I started having this little dialogue in my mind of, no, maybe you can go and drop off that form that you need to put in at the center. And then I would go, no, I want to go home. And there was this little battle going back and forth. And I thought, Graham, you're more subtle than this. So why don't you follow that feeling of going to the center and putting that form in? And this has a lot to do with the connection I have with you right now. And I came up to the center and I pulled into the car park. And I remember getting out of my truck and I stood there. And I had another battle going on in my mind. Do I go to the office, put in my form, or do I could hear something going on below the car park, what sounded like some construction noise. And there was this little back and forth, form or go down there. And again, Graham, you're more subtle than this. And I went down, I followed that feeling, and I went down, and it was a couple of guys building a roof, and one of them was visiting from overseas to help out a BK. And he saw me, and he looked at me and said, "Oh, I was just thinking of you this afternoon because I need a scaffold to build this roof. The scaffold is the platforms, temporary platforms you build to get up high." And I went, "What time?" And he said, "Oh, around about 3 o'clock." And I thought, oh, that's what that feeling was. And we talked about it a little bit later, and he shared with me that he'd had so many experiences like this, where he'd have this almost a feeling, a connection of the mind, of feeling, and then it became apparent afterwards what was happening. So I find it incredibly important and literally spiritually intoxicating to have these moments in recognizing the reality of spirituality. And hence, that's why I say to you now, we've had some sort of connection before. And although I'm standing here physically, I'm connected with you in thought and feeling as well. And I really enjoy keeping my radar up and open to feeling these sorts of moments in time to demonstrate the reality of spirituality. I heard a beautiful, beautiful line in a class recently that with the proof of experience, there's no need for any other proof. With the proof of experience, there is no need for any other proof. And so this was really apparent to me some 30 years ago when I came across the BKs, is I wanted to experience this, not just have it as an intellectual exercise. Otherwise, you might as well be doing something else. So, the self. I am a spiritual being. And I exist with other spiritual beings in their images, in their bodies, in this massive drama that we play our parts in. And I'll just share another little experience of the reality of this. The drama plays out through time. We get so caught in the moments that we're in. It can be an hour, it can be a day, it can be weeks, with whatever demands are playing out. But the drama plays out through time. And again, where's the reality of this? And I remember when I was about maybe 12 or 13, I lived in the United States. I lived in Connecticut, which is next to New York State. And I lived in a small town called Ridgefield, Connecticut. It's in the southwest of the state. And my best friend's grandfather was coming from Germany to live with him, and his parents and his brothers. And his name was Chris, my friend. And Chris's parents had the basement of the house converted to a flat for Chris's grandfather. And I remember wandering up to that place, that house, and I would sit there for hours in absolute fascination watching the builders building. And I remember a few years later, we'd moved from there to somewhere else. And I remember vividly going through my mind, imagining what I would be doing later in life. And it wasn't a conscious thing. It would just come into my mind sometimes, of these fleeting images of moving around houses and what I would be doing in life. It is literally what I do now professionally. And I had absolute joy and fascination recalling how some 40 years ago I had that experience. And I can vividly remember it. And it is exactly what I'm doing today. The drama plays out through time. And it was almost like all those years ago feeling the fabric of the future, but not realizing that that's what it was. And now here I am, 40 years later, and I'm actually experiencing what I literally remembered, almost remembering the future, my future self. That's what it feels like. So I'm constantly looking for the reality of what I learn and study every day spiritually. It provides an energy, an enthusiasm, and an ongoing interest. So we have the self, the eternal soul. We're all eternal souls. We have lifetimes. There is this amazingly complex drama that we live in. But sometimes things get really difficult. And I could imagine that over many, many lifetimes, as we come close to our theoretical lowest point in terms of body consciousness, where we really are maybe acting mostly on what we call the five vices, which is anger, greed, ego, attachment, lust. Lust takes many forms. You can have lust over so many things and be lost in so many things. Lust is being when you lose yourself to something else. I think when we get to that point in our existence, when we are at our lowest, we really start to get a sense of we are just so far from what we once were. And perhaps life is more full of difficulty. It's not necessarily full of the sort of thoughts and feelings that we would like to have. And as in the blurb this talk describes, the miracles are very few and far between, and the soul is becoming exhausted. And I had an interesting realization a couple of weeks ago, because I remember going through a period of my life, not so long ago actually, where I wasn't going to sleep early. And it was like I was dragging out my day for as long as I possibly could. And at the time, I didn't understand why. It's like I just didn't want to go to sleep. And as a consequence, you don't get up refreshed. You have no enthusiasm for tomorrow. And what I realized was within myself, it was actually a manifestation of my own anxiety about the future. Was if I can make this day last as long as possible, at least I know what's happening now, and I don't have to tackle tomorrow, whatever tomorrow brings. Because at that point in my life, tomorrow was not a very pleasant place to be. It was just a constant barrage of problems, and me not responding to them in the way that I would like to respond to them. The soul is exhausted. So, we manifest our I guess our drop in consciousness in many ways, and that was a really fascinating realization for me. And I also realized recently that I've been tackling my own state of mind in ways to make myself feel, not make myself, but actually genuinely feel enthusiastic about tomorrow, no matter what it brings. And that's actually a really important thing is how do I generate my enthusiasm every single day, no matter what's coming at me in the drama, to be enthusiastic. And in the world of the BKs, there is a beautiful tradition, and that is of giving blessings to each other. And blessings are, seeing the highest in someone else and actually expressing that you see that. And someone said to me many, many years ago, it was within a personal blessing to me. And if you're a BK, you know what that means. It was a personal blessing. It was treat Maya, which is illusion, ignorance, and negativity. Illusion, ignorance, and negativity. Treat it like a toy. And I've thought about that blessing for 30 something years. So Maya can come, illusion, ignorance, negativity can come. It can, in many forms, it can either be completely self-generated with no input from the outside world. I'm just in my own head, creating my own mess. Or it is some aspect of the drama. Other souls, other people, the matter I exist in, creating challenges, and we have to deal with it. And this blessing was treat Maya like a toy. And what I've really come to appreciate about that blessing is it's saying, look, you can't avoid stuff coming at you. But when it comes, don't just look at it one way. Turn it around. Look at it, the different facets of it. How can I think about that and feel about that situation, that Maya, that illusion, ignorance, and negativity that's come to me? How can I look at it in different ways? Because to change the destiny of my entire life only sometimes takes the slightest change in thinking or feeling. And then my destiny becomes completely different. Either I go this way or I go that way. And going that way will give me one outcome, and going that way will give me a totally different outcome. And so within the practice of Raj Yoga, there's this central idea of being the detached observer, to practice observing the drama, the self, everything in fact, in a detached way, to step away, to look at myself, to look at the drama, to look at others dispassionately, without any judgment, without any fear, without any anxiety, to just observe it. And I feel that to treat and look at Maya, illusion, ignorance, and negativity as if it were a toy, I have to have this ability to just step back in a moment, in that moment when that Maya comes to me, and to see the different ways I can approach this particular toy that's been placed in front of me. So, uh, and I'll just share another experience of the drama and this whole idea of being detached. Detached is not a dry thing. It's not an austere experience. It's actually quite a beautiful experience. And an aspect of myself that I've really come to appreciate and enjoy is that often I have feelings or thoughts that come to me that are not the way I would normally think or feel. And I mean this in a positive sense. And it's almost like they're calling out to me. That's the feeling I have. It's a little tap on the shoulder. Hey, you could look at this in a different way. You could think or feel in a different way. But we don't, because we're so habituated. We're so used to doing things after lifetimes in a particular way that we don't try anything else. We're so rigidly fixed in. This is the way I get through life. This is the way I think. And I had an absolutely fascinating and beautiful experience recently with a client. I have my own business, and these clients wanted to change the tops on their vanities, where the sink goes in the bathroom. And we talked about it, and we decided on what to put there. And it was quite an expensive material, and it just dragged on for months. Because we've had bushfires up here in the Blue Mountains and then coronavirus, it sort of dragged out. But the whole time there was this feeling within me of, this doesn't feel right. And there was a lot of money involved. It actually I was going to earn more by putting the tops in by not. And I went there to measure up finally for the materials one day, and the client was there. And she said to me when I walked in, we're thinking of selling the house. And I said, then why are you doing this? Why are you spending an extra $2,000 when we can just put new little sinks in for $2,000 less? Because whoever's going to buy the house is going to gut the bathrooms anyway. They don't care. This is from my own experience being in construction. And she looked at me and she said, Graham, I trust you. So let's not do that. And the wave of happiness that descended on me, and the smile on the client and the feeling together was like, that's why I felt the way I have the last 2 months, because it wasn't supposed to happen. And it was like almost feeling the fabric of the drama playing out, and learning a lesson of trusting myself, of my own subtlety. And I remember 30 odd years ago starting out, in Raj Yoga, this is the sort of thing I wanted to feel. I want to be that subtle, not just in this controlled environment that we experience in a Raj Yoga center, but I want it all the time, because this is the drama. I play my part in a very big drama, and I want to be subtle enough to feel it, to feel what is the right direction to go that's not just beneficial for me, but also beneficial for the others that I interact with, even in the most mundane of situations. So the drama is really an interplay between souls. And so much of what doesn't happen today is there is a huge lack of what I would call elevated feelings and thoughts about others and about myself. And when I sit in meditation, I do spend a lot of time trying to generate the sorts of feelings and thoughts and the image I have of myself, of relating to others and the wider world around me in the best possible way with the best possible feelings. so I have the best possible outcomes, not just for me, but for my, my immediate family, my friends, my relationships, everyone. And so when I want to go right back to the beginning of this talk, and the topic is around what if the miracles are few and far between? And miracles, for me, by definition, is having an outcome in a situation that is far beyond what I thought was possible in a positive sense. And I remember reading a very old class, a morning class from 1970s, I think it was. And this line was, "There will come a day when you will experience things beyond your wildest imagination, beyond your wildest dreams." That's what a miracle is, but in real life. So, and we live in this very complicated, unhappy world. And part of my I guess my vision of my highest self, my perfect self, what I'm aspiring to practically, is that not only will I be able to affect myself in a positive way, but I'll be able to affect others in a positive way. And they don't even know that it's going on. I want to be in that state of mind where I don't expect a return. I just want to naturally be like that. I want it to be that clean, and I'd like it to be natural. I'd like it to be easy. So we're actually going to have a meditation on the experience that we have with others in relationships. So we're going to take a break. We're going to do a little meditation, and then we're going to come back. And is there a question?
Om Shanti. Good wishes and pure feelings. Recognizing myself as an eternal being, I connect with God, the Supreme. And with these thoughts of eternal truth, of my own identity, and my relationship with God, through good feelings, pure feelings, that I awaken. I feel connected not only with God, but with the entire human race. All the people of this world are my family. We are connected with an eternal thread of love. We're connected through God as the children of God. And in my heart emerge feelings of love and benevolence. What is it that I wish for my family? A pure desire awakens that each and every soul should feel God's light and God's love. No other feelings remain, as this feeling becomes dominant. Whatever differences there may have been, seem mundane, insignificant. Only this awareness of one family remains. There are nothing but pure feelings and good wishes for each and every human soul. As the child of God, connected with the unlimited family, my vision has gone beyond the divisions and the limitations that normally cause conflict. My and mine are finished, and I am eternal, and that which is mine is also eternal. Limited things dissolve, and my vision is unlimited. I send out good wishes and pure feelings to all my brothers and sisters across the globe. So many are suffering, and they need the support of my good wishes. And the power of love reaches out and brings them closer to the divine, so that truly there may be benefit. Om Shanti.
Okay. So the drama playing out, playing with technology. That's okay. How much do you think we've missed, Sriram, with the audio? Okay. All right. Okay. So just to backtrack, in case you didn't hear that, one of the thoughts that came to mind in that meditation for me was that God doesn't need followers. And in essence, what that thought means to me is that there comes a point in our spiritual life, in our spiritual study, where I don't want to be a child anymore, and I. It's almost like being the older child in a family that the parent has faith in, that the parent knows that they only need a little correction here and there, but largely the child is going along okay. But when things are really important and there's a correction that's necessary, then those corrections are given. And it has a lot to do with the older child's vision of itself. And so this is my aspiration. I don't want to be a child who continually fumbles and falls down and constantly needs to be supported by others or by God. Um, but nonetheless, the relationship is there. So that was an interesting thought that sort of wafted into my mind when we were having that meditation. The other thing that came to mind is that meditation was very grand in terms of the way we potentially serve the world on a spiritual level with our mind to serve all souls. But I think in that progression of becoming a stronger, more mature child, there are no shortcuts. We have to go through what we have to go through. And some of those lessons are very difficult and they tend to get harder and harder. The toys that come to us, the Maya that comes to us gets harder. So in terms of miracles that can happen, I'll share this one last experience that really weaves together faith in the self, faith in the drama, and faith in God, in the relationship with God. And I remember in a class months ago, there was a statement: if you don't ask me, how can I answer your question? And this was God basically saying to his spiritual children, if you don't reach out with your mind and if you don't ask me, how can I answer your questions? How can I help you? And I really thought about this a lot, and it played out has played out in the most beautiful way, not just in this experience, but in many. But I'll share this one with you because it really is a very real experience, but it weaves in the beauty of what we learn. And I've recently gone through a divorce. I had a 13-year-old daughter, and my elderly mother lives with me, and I run a business. So you can't get much more real than that. And when you go through a divorce, you've invested a lot of time and energy and feelings and thoughts in the other person, in the family, your life, your future. And when it falls apart, your essential existence to a certain degree is challenged. And mine certainly was. And the fallout from that is far reaching, to the extent that my daughter was hospitalized at one point because of anxiety. So I remember about maybe a year and a half ago, I had this vivid, captivating, beautiful meditation experience at home. And in fact, I was sitting at home in my room in the afternoon, and I wasn't actually sitting there to meditate. I just fell into that contemplative state. And what came to mind was the image of a window in front of me. I'm about like that, a big window. And I was standing looking out of this window. And I was aware of houses below, what was a forest or a jungle, in a natural setting. I could see rooftops and I could feel life. It was almost like I could feel and see in my mind people moving around in the streets, living their life. And I tried to make this experience stop, and it wouldn't stop. It was my mechanism to see, am I imagining this or is it real? And I just let it come. And there was a complete sense of ease. There was no fear, there was no anxiety, there was no feeling that anybody in my community had any of what I've described as the five vices, no negativity. And then someone came and stood next to me. And my perception was this is my partner in life. And I could feel that personality, but there was no attachment. It was very clean, not like what we experience often in relationships, mostly in relationships in this world. And there was no ill feeling, nothing at all. And then a child came and stood in front of us. And then that awareness of that soul and was there as well. And then an expansive feeling of the community that I was in. And you can see it made a big impression on me. And then that experience faded away. Many months later, in the process of going through my divorce settlement, which is probably an expression of one of the most unpleasant aspects of the world we live in, most unpleasant experiences. I came to a point where it was a real struggle with my former partner to come to a resolution. And unfortunately, in this world, it often comes down to money. It's such an unpleasant aspect of life today that we define our relationship with someone on dollars and cents. But that's kind of where it came to. And I remember sitting alone one night, and I put it out there in my mind. I need something more than what I have alone. I haven't got enough to figure this out. Because I could see Maya knocking on the door in the form of my own frustration, my own residual anger, attachment to what life could have been like, and so on. And just knocking on the door. But there was enough detachment to reach out and go, I need something else. It's like the slightly older child now recognizing the need for parental assistance from the Supreme Soul. That's what it felt like looking back. And anyway, I went to sleep. And I got up the next morning, and we can read our classes that we have all over the world on our phone now or on our computer. And I was reading through this class, and about a third of the way through, there was this line. And it was, I teach you through the pictures. And that was a reference to very early on. There were a number of pictures created that are used in teaching the philosophy of Raja Yoga about time, about the tree of humanity and the relationship of religions and so on, and a few other pictures. And I read that, and I kept reading on, and I kept going back to this line. I teach you through the pictures. I teach you through the pictures. And I would read on a bit further, and I kept going. And again, I would go back to, I teach you through the pictures. And I realized, oh, you teach me through the pictures. And I sat back, and I remembered that experience of standing in front of the window with my partner here and my child here. And I looked up, and my bedroom window is the size of the window I saw in that experience. And I remembered, Graham, how often have you stood in front of that window and reached out with your mind to feel the souls who live around you and to send them feelings, good feelings and thoughts, and observe them as if you're up high. Right? You teach me through the pictures. And that experience magnified about 20 times the feeling of it. And I thought, if I felt like that now in this convoluted, Iron Age experience that I'm seemingly trapped in and can't move of this divorce process, if I felt the way I was feeling when I stood there looking out of that window, what would I say to my former partner now? what would that elevated feeling allow me to say? And I sat there and I let myself sink into that feeling. And I allowed myself to let my mind have faith that my mind would create what I needed to say for the best possible outcome. And the thought that came, the words that came, were literally to my partner, my former partner. For 18 years, you trusted me with everything financially, and you didn't ask a question. But now I trust my life, our daughter's life, and my mother's life to you. And I wrote it on my phone in a text message. And I sat there, and because it was at this point, it meant the difference between not having a house anymore and a place for myself, my daughter, to take care of my mother, or keeping my house. So the stakes were high. But I sat there and I thought, well, you know what? This is how I want to feel. This is how I want to be. And the toy looks like this from one angle, but what if I look at it from the other angle and I feel this way and approach it this way? Do I have the courage to do that? And do I have the courage to believe and have faith in myself? And I hit the button. And 2 days later, everything was fine. And now, miracles do happen beyond your wildest dreams. So now we're on good terms. Our daughter is flourishing, and life is moving in a direction that I would never have expected. So for me, it's absolutely essential that we take this, sometimes seen as an intellectual exercise, and play with it, experiment with it, see the reality of what is going on in our life. And I'll leave you with a closing thought from actually two things from Daddy Yankee, who recently left the body. I love it when we say leave the body, because in this world we die, but not in the world of the BKs. In the world of the BKs, we leave our body, because that's the truth. We go to another one. So when I was thinking about doing this talk, I did actually put it out there one night. I remember a couple of weeks ago. And I was going to bed and I said, God, or I don't, Supreme, whatever you want to call it. You can call it Supreme Soul, whatever you like. But I was saying God, or Baba, which means Father. What would you like me to say when I give this talk? What do you want me to say? I know what I want to talk about. And it was a fleeting thought and feeling. And then I went to sleep. The next morning, about 3:30 in the morning, I think it was, I was probably dreaming. And there was Daddy Yankee sitting over here. And there was a young Indian brother sitting here. Daddy Yankee was just smiling at me. And the Indian brother said to me, Graham, in your life, what's the most important thing that you've learned? What have you learned in your life? And I remember observing myself in the answer. And the answer was to have faith in myself. That's the biggest lesson. And to close this discussion or this talk, I remember in a class by Daddy Yankee many years ago, probably 20, 25, 30 years ago, she said, go into your own subtle region, find your own subtle region in your own mind, and find that subtlety of thought, is what she was saying, and play with it. Yeah, so there you go. Faith in the self, in the drama, and in God. And if there's a lacking in any one of those three things, there will be a gap in our happiness, our ongoing happiness. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Graham. That was very beautiful. And I think Graham is the embodiment of that, good feelings and good wishes and pure feelings for everyone in the whole world. And I hope you feel that love in your heart for yourself, for the world, and for God. Thank you. Bye.
We have a question. So is the drama, there's a question, is the drama of our life pre-scripted? Is Lord conducting according to our past karma? Okay. Well, there's two parts to that actually. Is the drama of our life predestined? That's really part one. And then is the Lord, God, the Supreme Soul, conducting according to our past karma? Okay. Well, that's a fantastic question, and it's a question that actually plagued me at the very beginning of my journey with the Raja Yoga. So, is the drama predestined? Well, according to the BKs, it actually repeats identically in a cyclical pattern. So, and that's the absolute intellectual answer. But it's a really hard one to come to grips with because, and why I realized for me it was hard to deal with the idea that time repeats is because of where I was, when I heard that all those years ago, because I didn't like where I was at. And I thought, well, if it's going to repeat like this, I don't like it. And how could it possibly be like this over and over again? But the experiences I've had since then are so profound and so beautiful that I will willingly experience these things over and over again. The things that I've experienced beyond my wildest dreams. And I'll give you a very another experience. Sriram, can you pan the camera down to this stage? Excuse me. This brown stage has particular significance for me. You can come back up again. Just there is good. I used to live in a Raj Yoga center many years ago. In fact, I lived with Sally for a while in the center in Asheville, which is no longer there. And I remember sitting down for our early morning meditation one day about 4 o'clock. And the moment I hit the floor, I sat on the floor. Can't do that now. My knees don't like it. I was gone. I wasn't aware of the room that I was in. And the whole experience was of standing on a low brown stage and speaking to people. And I remember about a year ago, I walked out of my house. I live near the center in Lura in the Blue Mountains. I live near here. And I was walking to the garage to get something. I was not in a spiritual consciousness. I was in probably one of the most mundane consciousnesses you can think of. I was going to get a wrench or a hammer or something. And I stopped in front of the first garage door. I almost remember it's like one of those cartoons you see when you're a child and the character stops in midair. And this whole experience I had 30 years ago came back to me, magnified about 100 times. And I realized, oh my God, I'm here. It's this brown stage. That's what it was. But this didn't exist 30 years ago. It wasn't here. This building wasn't here as it is now. And I stood there for about 5 minutes with tears streaming down my face. It's here. That's where that experience was. So how can you write a script like that? And again, when an experience is all the proof you need. You don't need any other proof, and no one can take it away from me. This is the stage I saw 30 years ago, and I'm standing in front of you. So yes, the drama is predestined. The second part of the question was, is the Lord conducting this drama? And the answer is no. There was a class a few days ago where he said, I'm a player in this drama just like you. I don't create it, I play my part just like you. But that soul plays a particularly unique part, never has its own body, and that soul's role is to be benevolent. And there was a beautiful line in our class this morning where he said, all of you, you get attached to each other, but I'm not attached to anybody. And then in the next sentence, he said, well, I am actually attached to you because I care for you. And that soul's role, and it's remembered in all religions, is to help when humanity, all souls, are at their lowest. And the starting point for helping is to provide clarity on existence. What is it all about? And one aspect of it is we have karmic accounts. We've had relationships with each other through lifetimes, and we have to clear those accounts. There is no choice. Well, actually, there is. Either we can consciously do it, or we can do it the hard way. My preference is I want to do it consciously. I want to sit there with my mobile phone and send that text message saying, I trusted you, or you trusted me, now I trust you. It's up to me. I didn't have to do that, but I had the experience. I teach you through the pictures. Okay, but then what are you going to do? Are you going to act on it? Thank you. Thank you for the question. Beautiful question. And on that note, have a lovely day, and I welcome you back to the next session that we have, whoever that is, tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock.